Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Mr. Daniel Yu, global strategist at Yuanta Securities. Mr. Yu, good to have you back on.
Good to be here.
Well, investors anxious a day ahead of the U.S. election, of course, but stocks on Wall Street recovering a bit from the rout last week. Also, of course, eyes on the coronavirus situation. What's the story in the global markets?
Yes, luckily, if you look at the U.S. market, it did recover on Monday. If you look at Dow Jones, it was up 1.6%, S&P 500 was up 1.2%, and NASDAQ kind of slightly declined at the beginning of the session, but did recover, and it was up by about 0.4%. Clearly, people are still watching over for the election results. We have to wait for another 2 days after we actually get some kind of results. And also, we're watching over the COVID-19 additional new cases. Clearly, the numbers are hitting at record high level. Globally, 560,000 plus get infected, and clearly this is creating the second wave of the COVID-19 incident. If this results into some kind of lockdown, then economic growth rate could slow down in the fourth quarter. That would be the concern at this point in time. However, though, we think that the lockdown, the level of lockdown is not going to be that significant. So more importantly, what's going to be the results of the presidential election is the key. And hopefully we'll get some kind of result by next 2 days, unless if Trump loses and Trump goes for the Supreme Court for the decision, then uncertainty could last for another couple of months, and that could be quite troublesome. In any case, at this time, volatility is there, and we have to use that volatility to find good stock to invest at the current point in time.
Well, now here in Korea, the KOSPI and the KOSDAQ both strongly higher today, seeming to track those gains on Wall Street. What was happening here in Seoul?
Yes, because of U.S. market's been quite strong yesterday, Korean market recovered quite nicely. If you look at both indices, KOSPI was up close to 2%. KOSDAQ was up also close to 2%. Clearly, this is a good signal. Of course, the U.S. recovering is a good thing that resulted into this recovery. But in addition to this, people are expecting that the capital gains taxes, the regulation might not change within this year. And if that's the case, then there's no reason for a lot of the investors to sell the stocks before the end of the year. If that happens, then we think that the actual liquidity condition could be quite ample enough to push up the KOSPI index as well as Korean equity market. If you look at the valuations and fundamentals, clearly Korea is better than most of other countries because they have done better job in terms of tackling the COVID-19 incident, and economic growth rate is going down, but at much slower pace, and the valuation looks very cheap for Korea at this point in time.
And as we just heard a minute ago, consumer prices in Korea last month rose by only 0.1%. This is the smallest rise since June. What do you see happening with inflation?
Right. As you said, South Korea's consumer price index increased by only 0.1% year on year in October, followed by 1% gain in the previous month. Market expectation was 0.7% year-on-year gain, but actually it came in much lower than expected. It is the lowest inflation in the 4-month period. Compared to previous year, electricity, water, gas, industrial products, and services all declined, but agricultural and livestock products rose slightly. Overall, we think that the economic condition is reasonably okay to create some kind of inflation, but it's not going to be that significant given the fact that global economy is still YOY declining trend. I think the inflation will come back probably sometime in next quarter, probably 2021. If that happens, then interest rate could rise in the future. But for the time being, Korea's 10 years bond rates remains at 1.5% level. We don't think that that's going to change much, and inflation is not going to be going up too fast in order for that interest rate to go up in the future. So stable interest rate environment does create a better financial market at the current point in time, and that could be positive news for the Korean equity market.
All right, we'll have to leave it there for today and catch up later this week when we should know a lot more about the U.S. election situation. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Excellent.